For the first time, scientists have been able to grow an embryo that is part human, part pig. A new study describes the research effort, which involved injecting a tiny amount of human stem cells into a pig embryo. The team was able to achieve a successful hybrid, often called a chimera from Greek mythology, in 186 of 2,075 experimental embryos implanted into surrogate pigs. In those specimens, about 1 cell in every 10,000 was human.
They used DNA editing tools to delete pig genes corresponding to certain organs like the heart. Then they injected human stem cells into the pig embryos, and the human cells fill the gaps. Researchers are getting better and better at growing these combined embryos, or chimeras. It's teaching them a lot about how our own cells develop and how different drugs work. And it's getting them closer to growing entire human organs for transplant. The human cells in the pig chimeras had started to develop into muscle and organs after 3 or 4 weeks. The researchers could have let it go on longer, but doing that might have had ethics and animal welfare implications that nobody really understands yet. Stem cells are a good choice for this research because they can grow into just about anything, including brain cells. There's a chance, even if it's a slim one, an animal that matures with human cells could end up with altered intelligence.
If you have pigs with partly human brains, you would have animals that might actually have consciousness like a human. It might have human-type needs. We don't really know.
This is one reason why the government doesn't give out funding for chimera research right now.
Animal lovers are outraged again at the death of a dolphin at the hands of selfie takers in Argentina. Argentinian newspaper La Capital reports that on Sunday, January 22nd, on a beach in San Bernardo, a baby dolphin was killed as tourists tried to take pictures with it. There's a YouTube video of the incident showing a group of people around the small marine mammal holding it down and petting it. The dolphin didn't survive. One witness told news station C5N, quote, "They let him die. They could have returned him to the ocean. He was breathing, but everyone started taking photos and touching him, saying he was already dead." Many were quick to point out this wasn't the first time something like this has happened. Back in February 2016, a similar incident happened, also in Argentina, and like this recent time, images of it quickly went viral. You could see people passing the dolphin around, taking photos with it, until the animal died of dehydration.
Bishop Manuel Cruz healing and grateful after suffering the unthinkable. The footage almost too painful to watch, a man walking right up to the altar where Bishop Cruz was saying a prayer, and then sucker punching him right in the mouth in front of the congregation at the Cathedral Basilica of the Sacred Heart in Newark Saturday during a special gathering in honor of Baseball Hall of Famer Roberto Clemente. Police officers and others in the pews rushing to hold down the attacker as others turned to help Bishop Cruz sprawled out on the floor.
I am in pain. I'm a little frightened inside. I'm only a human being, but otherwise I am okay.
The bishop now recovering with 30 stitches in his mouth. His attacker, Charles Miller, who was walked out of the cathedral in handcuffs, now set to face a judge in court later today.
This man who came to the altar is my brother, and I've been praying for him.
The bishop says he suspects that Miller is mentally ill, but in the spirit of forgiveness, Bishop Cruz offered a mass for Miller, praying for him by name. He hopes for this to be an opportunity of teaching about faith and forgiveness.
According to a recent study, the muddying of coastal waters due to climate change may drastically increase levels of neurotoxic mercury in sea life, potentially contaminating world food supplies. Study author Eric Bjorn warns that disruptions in marine ecosystems could shift the balance of microbes at the base of the food web, potentially doubling methylmercury concentrations in zooplankton. Those higher concentrations could easily climb up the food web to fish that are consumed by humans. Bjorn notes that even small amounts of methylmercury can cause birth defects and kidney damage. Since the start of the Industrial Revolution, pollution from human activities such as fossil fuel burning has already tripled the amount of mercury that has settled in the surface ocean.
Chilean authorities say they have never seen anything on this scale. The wildfires across the country are the worst in Chile's modern history. People barely had time to retrieve their belongings as the blaze raced towards their homes.
The center came down to this side. It hit very hard, and all of a sudden, that pot was on fire. It came through very fast. I managed to get 2 dogs, my father, and a horse that my father rode, and we went up there.
The fires have left hundreds homeless and ruined livelihoods. Evacuations have saved residents, but firefighters and police have died.
It's a sad loss for us. We will keep on working until we are ordered to go back to Santiago with our martyr.
Some emergency services say a lack of resources makes their job more difficult.
We are firemen. When houses burn, it hurts us. At this moment, another house is burning, but we don't have any water. How is it possible, if we are in a state of catastrophe, that they don't constantly provide us with water?
Help has come from France, Peru, Mexico, and the U.S. The most visible sign of support arrived Wednesday morning in the form of a Boeing 747 supertanker. It's the world's biggest firefighting plane. Wildfires are not uncommon in Chile's long, hot summers, but this year is worse because of a drought that has lasted nearly a decade. Authorities say dozens of fires are still burning out of control.
According to reports in Japan, Tokyo Electric Power, the operator of the wrecked Fukushima nuclear plant, has found possible nuclear fuel debris below the damaged number 2 reactor. If the findings are confirmed, it would be a significant breakthrough in attempts to clean up the nuclear facility. TEPCO detected a lump of black material directly below the reactor in a camera inspection on Monday morning, but what it is hasn't been confirmed. The company will announce its assessment of the material at a news conference later on Monday. 3 reactors at the Fukushima plant went into meltdown after a magnitude 9 earthquake struck off the coast in March 2011, forcing around 160,000 people to flee their homes.
Truckload after truckload of once edible food is dumped around the world every day. At this waste plant in the south of England alone, 1,000 tonnes arrive every week.
So we take in food waste from all sorts of places, but hotels, restaurants, shops, schools, offices, from their kitchens, prep areas, and also some retail waste as well.
It's estimated a third of the food produced globally is never eaten. In Europe, 88 million tonnes of food is wasted every year. That's equal to 173 kilograms per person. The great tragedy of all this food waste is the thought of the mouths it could have fed. Around 55 million people are in food poverty across Europe, and the amount of food we waste every year could feed them 9 times over.
The symbol of Lebanon's failed political system. Mountains of garbage piling up on the streets of the capital, Beirut. The so-called garbage crisis started in the summer of 2015 and quickly sparked protests over the government's inability to solve it. Warif Suleiman is a 28-year-old civil engineer who joined the Use Think movement, the main organizer of the demonstrations. He was arrested in August 2015, and he's now facing trial in a military court.
The security forces closed the road with barbed wire. Many people, including myself, tried to remove it, so we could move forward, but people were arrested, including me, and the protest had only just begun. They are trying to prevent these protests. They don't treat us properly in the military court, and they shouldn't use them for our cases.
Warif, alongside 13 other young protesters, is accused of taking part in banned protests and offenses against internal security forces. Rights groups are also condemning the trials of civilians by Lebanon military courts.
Iran has reportedly conducted its first ballistic missile test under Donald Trump's presidency. A US official claimed on Monday that the launch occurred a day earlier at a well-known site test outside Semnan, east of Tehran. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, the official noted that the medium-range ballistic missile flew 1,010 kilometers before exploding. He added that the last time this type of missile was test-launched was in July 2016. The launch is an apparent violation of a United Nations Security Council resolution calling upon Iran not to carry out activity related to ballistic missiles.
Now, in South Sudan, violence has erupted between rebels and the Sudan People's Liberation Army in Malakal. This is the latest in their struggle to recapture the capital of the oil-producing Upper Nile region. The number of casualties remains unknown. According to the military, the rebels have been trying to capture Malakal and take advantage of the government's decision not to wage an offensive against them. And that's in line with South Sudan's efforts to implement the 2015 peace deal.
Life in Indian-ruled Kashmir has come to a standstill as India marks its 68th Republic Day. Shops, businesses and other institutions have closed down in protest to what they call India's forceful occupation of their land. Restrictions have been imposed and security has been beefed up in the region. Only a handful of people attended the Indian Republic Day parade in Srinagar's Bakshi Stadium, fearing retaliatory attacks by pro-independence fighters. Since the division of the subcontinent, people of Kashmir have been opposing Indian rule in the region, thus rejecting celebrations. With each passing year, the resentment against Indian rule has grown in Kashmir. Despite a transition from violent struggle to peaceful means of seeking independence, analysts say there has been no visible change in India's modus operandi towards the people of Kashmir. Kashmir is at the heart of a dispute between India and Pakistan. Both countries claim the region in entirety but rule it in parts.
Bahraini police attacked protesters with live fire and tear gas as thousands protest against the trial of prominent cleric Sheikh Issa Ghassam. The police were trying to disperse demonstrations in several towns near the capital, Manama. Protesters were holding pictures of Sheikh Ghassam, chanting slogans in his support. Sheikh Ghassam's trial was held in absentia. The next hearing is reportedly scheduled for February 12. On Thursday, at least one protester was killed after regime forces opened fire on a sit-in staged by Sheikh Ghassam's supporters outside of his house. Manama has stripped the top cleric of his citizenship, accusing him of fueling sectarianism and violence. But human rights groups have condemned the move as arbitrary. They are demanding the decision to cancel Sheikh Ghassam's citizenship to be revoked.
The United Nations aid chief has warned that a child under the age of 10 is dying every 10 minutes of preventable causes in Yemen, and has called for an immediate ceasefire there. A Saudi-led coalition has been conducting airstrikes in the region for almost 2 years. UK humanitarian organisations Save the Children travel to Yemen and observe the drastic conditions. A warning: you may find some of the following images disturbing.
كانت حياتي طبيعية، كنا نخرج بأمان، لا ما نحناش خايفين من أي شيء. أكره أنا صدق أكره الطيارة لأنه إحنا رايح المدرسة متخوفة، أخرج وين متخوفة، أدخل وين متخوفة. ضربوا مدرستنا لما كنا هناك، ضربوا يعني قذيفة واللي كنت بالفصل هذا يصيحت وما قدرتش أخرج، كنت اللي اختلفت. بعد كنت 14 ما حد كان يدخل لعندي. كان في معنا أخ صغير عمره 4 سنين، عمه مش اللي طه، ما كانش داري ما فيه مش حية. بعد شلت أمي وتبصر هنا كأنه مليان شرايط براسه، مليان شرايط. افتقعنا، الأطفال تهاربوا وبعضهم تقاروا.
Well, Mark Kay, a humanitarian advocacy advisor for Save the Children, says Yemen is now facing the world's most severe humanitarian crisis.
There's been a flagrant disregard for the protection of civilians, for international humanitarian law by all parties to the conflict. I think that's really important to stand out, is that both sides to the conflict are not condoning the way they should be fighting this war. And what this means, though, is that behind those numbers there are huge numbers of children, of innocent civilians who are being killed, maimed, being lifelong disfigurement because of these breaches. The situation is not only getting worse, but what we're not actually seeing is much improvements since I've last been in there in terms of working towards a peace process, a durable solution. It's the largest humanitarian crisis in the world right now, 18 million people in need of humanitarian assistance. I think there is a problem in terms of the amount of coverage that is coming out of Yemen so that people can really see the human impact of this war.
Well, the Saudi-led coalition is continuing its airstrikes, and one of its biggest weapon suppliers is the UK. Britain has sold £3.3 billion worth of arms to Riyadh since March 2015, when the conflict in Yemen began. That includes more than £2 billion worth of warplanes, helicopters and drones. Saudi Arabia now has twice as many UK-made warplanes than the Royal Air Force. The question of Britain's arms sales to the Saudis has been raised in Parliament once again.
Thousands of civilians have been killed in Yemen, including a large number by the Saudi Air Force.
That's right.
And they've done that using British-built planes with pilots who are trained by British instructors who are dropping British-made bombs and are coordinated by the Saudis in the presence of British military advisors.
Will the Prime Minister agree to launch immediately an inquiry and a full review into the arms export licences to Saudi Arabia and suspend those arms sales until that review has been concluded?
Our arms exports are carefully controlled and we are backing the legitimate government of the Yemen.
Well, Mark Kay again says arms sales should be suspended because they may be breaking UK law.
I mean, UK law on arms is that if there's any clear risk that any weapons they sell might be used in a breach of international humanitarian law, then they should suspend those arms sales. What we'd argue is that there have been numerous verified accounts of grave violations. That's attacks on hospitals, attacks on schools.
Boy Scouts of America will now allow transgender children who identify as boys to participate in their programs. The organization made the announcement Monday, saying the decision was based on how states and communities have changed the way gender is defined. The Boy Scouts previously held a policy that relied on the gender listed on a child's birth certificate to indicate whether or not they could participate.
Like every 8-year-old, Joe Maldonado just wants to have fun with his friends.
Well, I like to go camping. I like to do science experiments. We ate cupcakes and stuff. It was fun, but they ruined it.
In December, Joe was kicked out of Boy Scout Pack 87 in Secaucus, New Jersey, because he is transgender, born a female.
This never happened in my life. I didn't do anything wrong.
Joe has since gotten support from all over the country. And after a month of not hearing from the Boy Scouts, his mother, Christy Maldonado, took their battle to the court last Thursday. She filed a complaint with the State Division of Civil Rights.
This was a wake-up call for him of how society could be so cruel. He didn't understand why. Because he feels like all the other kids.